Scalding liquid drips down Zara's face as the first-class passenger smirks. Accidents happen to your kind. The cabin falls silent. Through stinging tears, Zara notices flight attendant supervisor Jordan Pierce's expression hardening. In one fluid motion, Jordan accesses the PA system, her finger hovering over the broadcast button. Before we dive into this shocking story, where are you watching from today? Hit that like button right now if you've ever witnessed discrimination and wished someone would step up. Subscribe to follow Zara's journey as we see what happens when everyday heroes refuse to stay silent in the face of blatant racism. Zara Johnson had always been exceptional. At 24 years old, her resume already gleamed with accomplishments that people twice her age would envy. A recent Harvard Law graduate with honors, she had defied every statistic and stereotype thrown her way since childhood. Today's flight to Chicago represented more than just a trip. It was the culmination of years of sacrifice, determination, and excellence against persistent headwinds. The job interview waiting for her at Harrington and Associates, one of the most prestigious law firms in the country, could catapult her career into the stratosphere. Only 2 candidates remained in contention for the associate position that offered not just an impressive salary, but the kind of mentorship and case experience that launched legendary legal careers. Zara had prepared for weeks, researching the firm's recent cases, practicing responses to potential questions, and selecting the perfect professional outfit, a navy blue suit with subtle pinstripes that projected both confidence and competence. Her parents had sacrificed everything to support her education. Her father, William Johnson, had worked double shifts as a hospital orderly for years to contribute to her college fund. Her mother, Elaine, a high school English teacher, had spent countless evenings helping Zara perfect her writing and presentation skills. Their unwavering belief in her abilities had carried Zara through moments of doubt that inevitably came, with being the first or the only in predominantly white institutions. "You're not just representing yourself," her mother would often remind her. "But that doesn't mean you carry the weight of everyone who looks like you. It just means you're opening doors that others will walk through later." As Zara settled into her first-class seat, an extravagance she'd justified as necessary to arrive wrinkle-free and well-rested for tomorrow's interview, she texted her parents a quick update. "Boarding now. Nervous but ready. Love you both." Her father's response came immediately. "You've earned your seat at every table. This one is no different. Proud of you, baby girl." The affirmation warmed her, but couldn't completely dispel the familiar tension that came with navigating spaces not designed with her in mind. She'd noticed the subtle double takes from other first-class passengers as she stored her carefully packed carry-on in the overhead compartment. The slight hesitation from the gate agent when checking her boarding pass, as if confirming she hadn't somehow made a mistake. "Can I help you with that, ma'am?" A flight attendant with a name tag reading Jordan Pierce offered, noticing Zara struggling to fit her garment bag. "Thank you," Zara replied, grateful for the assistance. Jordan was tall with an athletic build, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun that complemented her crisp uniform. Something in her efficient yet kind demeanor immediately put Zara at ease. "Interview outfit?" Jordan asked with a knowing smile, carefully arranging the garment bag. "That obvious?" Zara laughed. "I recognize the look of someone with important places to be." Jordan winked. "Good luck with whatever it is." As Jordan moved on to assist other passengers, Zara settled into her seat and retrieved her interview materials. She intended to use the 3-hour flight to review the firm's recent cases once more. Focus was crucial now. This opportunity represented the culmination of years of hard work. The cabin gradually filled, the quiet efficiency of first class, boarding contrasting with the more chaotic process further back. Zara couldn't help overhearing snippets of conversation from nearby passengers. "Standards certainly aren't what they used to be," murmured an older man in a golf shirt to his companion, with a pointed glance in Zara's direction. "Probably using miles or some diversity program," his companion replied, just loudly enough to be heard. Zara kept her expression neutral, a skill honed through years of similar encounters. She'd learned that responding often only escalated situations, painting her as the angry black woman stereotype, regardless of how justified her reaction might be. Instead, She opened her tablet and immersed herself in reviewing Harrington and Associates' recent class action victory. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. We're experiencing some minor mechanical issues that our team is addressing. We expect to depart within the hour. We appreciate your patience." A collective groan rippled through the cabin. Zara checked the time anxiously. Her carefully planned buffer between landing and checking into her hotel was shrinking. She still had plenty of time before tomorrow's interview, but the delay threatened to disrupt her mental preparation routine. Around her, the mood shifted as passengers absorbed the inconvenience. The subtle hostility directed at her seemed to intensify, as if she were somehow responsible for their collective misfortune. Zara focused more intently on her tablet, trying to create a bubble of calm professionalism around herself. Tomorrow's interview required her full concentration, not energy wasted on the small-minded assumptions of strangers. Little did she know that this delay would set in motion a chain of events that would test her in ways no interview ever could. Patricia Whitfield considered herself a woman who had earned every thread of her Armani suit and every square inch of her corner office. At 55, she'd climbed to the position of Chief Marketing Officer at a Fortune 500 company, breaking glass ceilings with sharp elbows and sharper instincts. Her sleek silver bob and perpetual expression of mild disdain had become her trademark in boardrooms across the country. She did not appreciate delays. She did not appreciate incompetence. And she most certainly did not appreciate the airline's apparent disregard for her platinum executive status, as she found herself still sitting at the gate 30 minutes after their scheduled departure time. "This is completely unacceptable," Patricia snapped at Jordan, who was making her way through the cabin offering water to waiting passengers. "Do you have any idea what my time is worth? I have a board meeting tomorrow morning." "I understand your frustration, Ms. Whitfield," Jordan replied with practiced patience. "Our maintenance team is working as quickly as possible to ensure everyone's safety. Meanwhile, you're letting people who clearly don't belong in first class take up space," Patricia muttered, loud enough for several nearby passengers to hear as her gaze flicked toward Zara. Jordan's professional smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Everyone in this cabin has a valid first-class ticket, ma'am. Can I bring you something while we wait?" "Scotch, neat. Make it a double." Patricia dismissed Jordan with a wave of her manicured hand. Zara kept her eyes fixed on her tablet, though the words had blurred as her heart rate accelerated. She'd encountered women like Patricia Whitfield throughout her academic career, women who viewed diversity as a personal attack on their status rather than a strengthening of institutions. Women who assumed any person of color in an elite space must have taken their rightful place. Jordan returned with Patricia's scotch, then paused by Zara's seat. "Would you like anything?" she asked, her tone deliberately warmer than it had been with Patricia. "Just water, please," Zara replied quietly. "Coming right up," Jordan assured her with a subtle nod of solidarity that didn't go unnoticed by Patricia, who narrowed her eyes over the rim of her scotch glass. As the delay stretched beyond an hour, Patricia's mood deteriorated with each sip of alcohol. She made increasingly audible comments about standards dropping and special treatment whenever crew members checked on Zara's comfort. When the captain finally announced they were preparing for departure, Patricia had already finished her second drink and was growing more openly hostile. The tension reached a breaking point when Zara stood to retrieve a pen from her bag in the overhead compartment. As she reached up, her elbow accidentally brushed against Patricia's shoulder. "Excuse me," Zara apologized immediately, though the contact had been minimal. Patricia recoiled as if she'd been struck. "Watch yourself," she hissed. "Some of us earned our place here." The comment stung like a slap. Zara paused, pen in hand, weighing her response. Professional composure had always been her armor, but there was a line between dignified silence and allowing someone to trample her humanity. "I earned my seat just like you earned yours," Zara replied evenly, meeting Patricia's gaze directly. "My ticket cost the same as yours." Several nearby passengers shifted uncomfortably. Some pretended to be absorbed in magazines or phones, while others watched the exchange with undisguised interest. One middle-aged man in a business suit seemed to smirk slightly, as if entertained by the confrontation. "Did it?" Patricia's voice dripped with insinuation. Or did some diversity quota pay your way? Affirmative action at 30,000 feet. The cabin seemed to freeze. A woman across the aisle gasped softly. The businessman's smirk widened. Most passengers studied their laps with sudden intensity. Zara felt heat rising in her cheeks but kept her voice level. My academic and professional achievements speak for themselves. I don't owe you an explanation for my presence here. Your kind always thinks you're owed something. Patricia scoffed, loud enough for the entire first-class cabin to hear. Jordan, who had been assisting with final preparations for takeoff nearby, approached swiftly. Is everything all right here? Everything's fine, Zara replied tightly, refusing to escalate the situation further. She returned to her seat, hands slightly trembling as she reopened her tablet. Jordan gave Patricia a pointed look. We'll be taking off shortly. I'll need to collect that glass. Patricia reluctantly handed over her empty Scotch glass. I'll need another once we're in the air. We'll see about that, Jordan murmured, exchanging a brief look of apology with Zara. As the plane finally taxied toward the runway, Zara tried to refocus on her interview materials, but Patricia's words echoed in her mind. The familiar weight of having to prove her worthiness settled across her shoulders. Tomorrow's interview suddenly felt like it, carried an even heavier significance. The first hour of the flight passed in tense silence. Jordan brought Zara a cup of tea without being asked, a small gesture of support that didn't go unnoticed by Patricia, who had indeed been served another Scotch after takeoff despite Jordan's initial reluctance. The confrontation might have ended there if not for an unexpected patch of turbulence that caused Zara's tea to slosh slightly onto her interview notes. As she quickly dabbed at the papers with a napkin, Patricia seized the opportunity. Having trouble handling your drink? She sneered. Zara ignored her, focusing on salvaging her carefully prepared materials. I'm speaking to you, Patricia insisted, her voice rising. The least you people could do is acknowledge when your betters address you. A few passengers exchanged alarmed glances. One young woman began recording discreetly with her phone. Jordan, who had been checking on passengers further back, quickened her pace toward the brewing confrontation. Before she could intervene, Patricia stood, ostensibly to reach for something in the overhead bin. As she did, her arm accidentally knocked into Zara's arm, causing her to jostle the remaining tea. But instead of spilling onto the tray table, the liquid splashed directly onto Zara's white blouse and remaining interview notes. Oh, Patricia exclaimed with exaggerated surprise that didn't reach her eyes. How clumsy of me. But the incident didn't end there. As Zara gasped at the spreading stain, Patricia deliberately reached for her own coffee cup, still steaming hot, and turned as if to sit, tripping over nothing. The scalding liquid poured directly onto Zara's lap and face. Zara cried, out in pain as the hot coffee burned her skin. Accidents happen, Patricia said coldly, looking down at Zara's distress with undisguised satisfaction. Then, ensuring she could be heard, added, especially to your kind. The entire cabin fell silent in shock. The young woman's phone continued recording, and Jordan Pierce, returning to the scene, witnessed the final moment with an expression that transformed from professional concern to barely contained fury. Jordan Pierce had seen a lot in her 15 years as a flight attendant, from medical emergencies to drunken brawls, from marriage proposals to bereavement breakdowns. Human drama played out differently at 35,000 feet, where emotions ran higher and escape routes were non-existent. But in all her years traversing the skies, few incidents had affected her as viscerally as watching Patricia Whitfield deliberately pour hot coffee on Zara Johnson. The moment crystallized everything Jordan had experienced in her own life. As a biracial woman with a black father and white mother, Jordan had navigated the complicated terrain of identity and prejudice since childhood. She'd endured her share of microaggressions in the airline industry, where appearances were scrutinized and passenger preferences sometimes catered to antiquated biases. She'd been passed over for promotions despite perfect performance reviews. She'd been asked to swap sections with white colleagues when certain passengers requested different service. Jordan's training kicked in immediately. "Medical kit to first class, please," she called to her colleague Lisa, who nodded and rushed to retrieve the emergency supplies. To Zara, whose face contorted in pain, she said, "I'm so sorry. Let's get you cleaned up right away." Then she turned to Patricia, her voice low but firm. "Ma'am, please return to your seat immediately." "It was clearly an accident," Patricia replied, her smirk barely concealed. "Perhaps if she wasn't taking up space where she doesn't belong." "That's enough," Jordan cut her off. "Return to your seat now, or I will have you restrained for assaulting another passenger." Patricia's eyes widened at the word, assaulting. "How dare you? Do you have any idea who I am? I play golf with your CEO." Jordan maintained unwavering eye contact. "At this moment, ma'am, you are a passenger who has violated airline safety protocols and caused injury to another passenger. Your connections will not change my duty to ensure everyone's safety. Now sit down." The authority in Jordan's voice caused Patricia to hesitate before slowly sinking back into her seat, fuming. Several passengers who had witnessed the entire exchange murmured their approval of Jordan's intervention. Lisa arrived with the medical kit, and Jordan quickly assessed Zara's injuries. The coffee had fortunately cooled somewhat during the flight, but was still hot enough to cause pain and redness on Zara's face, neck, and hands. Her once immaculate blouse was ruined, and her interview materials were soaked through with brown liquid. "I need to clean these areas to prevent burns," Jordan explained gently, opening sterile wipes. "Are you having trouble breathing? Any feeling of throat swelling?" Zara shook her head, still in shock. "My interview," she whispered, looking at the sodden papers. "All my preparation." "First things first," Jordan assured her. "Let's take care of you. Then we'll figure out the rest." As Jordan carefully treated the affected areas, applying burn gel to the worst spots, she noticed other passengers watching the scene. Some looked uncomfortable, others outraged on Zara's behalf. A distinguished-looking older gentleman approached, despite the seatbelt sign. "I'm Dr. Martin Reynolds," he introduced himself, "professor of medicine at Northwestern. May I assist?" Jordan nodded gratefully. "Thank you, doctor." Dr. Reynolds examined Zara's injuries with a professional eye. First-degree burns, possibly some second-degree on the neck. "Keep applying the gel. She should see a doctor upon landing for proper treatment and documentation." He emphasized the last word while glancing meaningfully at Patricia. "Documentation?" Zara asked, wincing as Jordan applied more gel. "Young lady, what happened to you was assault," Dr. Reynolds stated firmly. "As a witness, I'd be happy to provide a statement." From across the aisle, a young woman with intricate braids spoke up. "I have the whole thing on video. She deliberately poured that coffee on you and made a racist comment afterward." She held up her phone. "I'm Kiana Washington, by the way. I have a pretty large social media following. This kind of behavior needs to be exposed." Patricia's face drained of color at the mention of video evidence. She fumbled for her phone, presumably to call someone important enough to make this problem disappear. "Thank you both," Jordan said sincerely, then lowered her voice to Zara. "I'm going to find you a change of clothes and see what we can do about your documents. Then I need to report this to the captain." "Am I in trouble?" Zara asked, still processing the trauma of what had just occurred. Jordan's expression softened. "Absolutely not. You've done nothing wrong. But protocol requires that any physical altercation be reported." She squeezed Zara's uninjured hand. "This isn't over. I've got your back." While Lisa took over applying burn gel, Jordan retrieved a clean uniform shirt from her personal bag and brought it to Zara. "It's not perfect, but it's dry and clean." "Thank you," Zara murmured, fighting back tears that weren't entirely from physical pain. Jordan then made her way to the cockpit to brief Captain Reyes on the situation. As expected, he was concerned about both Zara's well-being and the potential for further disruption. "Do we need to divert?" he asked. "I don't believe so, Captain. The passenger is receiving medical attention and the instigator seems subdued for now. But I've documented the incident, collected witness statements, and a passenger has video evidence of the assault." Captain Reyes nodded gravely. "Keep me updated. If anything escalates, we may need to request law enforcement upon arrival." "There's one more thing, Captain," Jordan added hesitantly. "The passenger who caused the incident claims to have connections to airline executives. She mentioned playing golf with the CEO." The captain's expression hardened. On my aircraft, the only hierarchy that matters is safety. Document everything meticulously, Jordan. I'll back your actions. Returning to the cabin, Jordan found Patricia engaged in a heated phone conversation. Do you know who I am? She hissed into the phone. Well, find someone who does. I want this flight attendant's job. Jordan maintained her professional demeanor as she approached. Ms. Whitfield, I'll need a statement from you regarding the incident. Patricia covered her phone. There was no incident, just an accident that's being blown out of proportion. Now leave me alone or I'll have you removed from this airline entirely. That's your right to feel that way, Jordan replied evenly, making notes. I'll indicate that you declined to provide a statement. During a brief break while other crew members handled service, Jordan stepped into the galley and made a call to Marisol Diaz, the passenger advocacy director at headquarters and a trusted friend who had faced similar discrimination early in her career. Mari, I need your guidance on a situation, Jordan explained, outlining what had occurred. The passenger is threatening to use connections to the CEO. Document everything, Marisol advised. Get statements, preserve evidence. I'll alert our legal team to be ready when you land. And Jordan, thank you for standing up. Too many of these incidents get swept under the rug. When Jordan returned to check on Zara, she found her attempting to salvage her interview materials, carefully separating pages and dabbing them with napkins. Tomorrow's interview is everything I've worked for, Zara explained, her voice steadier. Now though her hands still trembled slightly. I can't show up unprepared. Jordan sat beside her. I admire your focus, but you've just experienced a traumatic event. You might want to consider rescheduling isn't an option, Zara interrupted. There are only 2 final candidates. If I don't show, the position goes to the other person. Simple as that. Jordan nodded, understanding the additional burdens carried by those for whom opportunities rarely offered second chances. Then let's make sure you're ready. What do you need? As they talked, Jordan noticed Patricia watching them with narrowed eyes, still making calls and becoming increasingly agitated when apparently not getting the results she wanted. What would you do if you were in Jordan's position? Would you risk your career to stand up against blatant racism? Or follow protocol, even if it might not deliver justice? Comment number 1. If you believe Jordan should prioritize supporting Zara, regardless of professional consequences. Comment number 2. If you think she should strictly follow airline procedures, even if Patricia might escape consequences due to her connections. Like and subscribe if you believe in standing up against discrimination wherever it happens. But the big question remains. With Patricia's powerful connections and Zara's career hanging in the balance, what will Jordan do next? Is there a way to ensure justice without everyone losing what they've worked for? News of the incident spread throughout the cabin like turbulence, impossible to contain, and felt differently depending on where you sat. In first class, the atmosphere had transformed from the usual hushed efficiency to a tense social experiment. Passengers had chosen sides, some subtly, others overtly. Patricia Whitfield's face had settled into a mask of indignant victimhood as she continued making calls, her voice alternating between honey-sweet persuasion when speaking to those with power and vinegar-sharp commands to underlings. It's being completely misrepresented, she assured someone, presumably with authority. You know how these people twist everything to play the victim. 3 rows behind her, Zara Johnson sat wrapped in a blanket Jordan had provided, wearing the flight attendant's spare uniform shirt, still processing the assault while simultaneously trying to reconstruct her interview preparation. Dr. Reynolds had moved to the empty seat beside her, both to monitor her condition and provide a buffer against Patricia's occasional glares. Apply more gel in 30 minutes, he advised, checking his watch. Those burns should be documented by a medical professional when we land. Zara nodded absently, more focused on the soggy remains of her meticulously prepared notes. Some pages were completely illegible, the ink blurred beyond recognition. Others had dried with coffee stains, creating Rorschach patterns across critical information about Harrington and Associates' recent cases. I've been preparing for weeks, she explained to Kiana Washington, who had also moved closer to offer support. Every detail matters in these interviews. They'll be looking for any reason to disqualify me. Kiana, whose vibrant personality matched her colorful fashion choices, nodded knowingly. The old twice as good to get half as far challenge. I deal with it daily in tech. She adjusted her designer glasses. But my video has already got 5,000 views from my initial tweet. Sometimes public pressure creates accountability. Where internal systems fail. Zara looked alarmed. You posted it already? Without asking me? Just a clip showing the coffee pour and her "your kind" comment. No close-ups of you, Kiana assured her. But this kind of behavior thrives in shadows. Trust me, I've built my following exposing exactly this kind of entitlement. From midway, down the aisle, Lisa approached with a sealed note for Zara. From 14C, she explained quietly. Zara unfolded the paper to find a business card for the Schuyler Johnson law firm with a handwritten message. What happened was assault and racial discrimination. I specialize in such cases. Free consultation. Marcus Schuyler, attorney at law. The convergence of support from strangers felt both comforting and overwhelming. For years, Zara had carefully navigated predominantly white spaces by downplaying racial dynamics, focusing instead on merit and performance. She'd been raised to believe excellence was the answer to prejudice. Now, publicly embodying the role of racial discrimination victim threatened the careful professional image she'd constructed. Meanwhile, Jordan was conducting a strategic operation, behind the scenes. In the rear galley, she consulted with the other flight attendants about proper documentation procedures for serious passenger incidents. Everything must be perfect, she emphasized to her colleagues. Witness statements, medical assessment, captain's report, all of it. She's claiming connections to executives, so we need to be bulletproof. Lisa frowned. I've seen this before. Jordan, remember the congressman who grabbed Alicia last year? Despite 15 witness statements, he still flies with us monthly, and she got transferred to regional routes. This is different, Jordan insisted. We have video evidence. Evidence can disappear, Miguel, another crew member, warned. Especially when powerful people make calls. Not this time, Jordan replied with quiet determination. When she returned to check on Zara, she found Patricia attempting to engage other first-class passengers in her narrative. Completely blown out of proportion, Patricia was saying loudly to anyone who would listen. An accident during turbulence, and suddenly I'm being treated like a criminal by the staff. A few passengers nodded sympathetically, particularly those who hadn't witnessed the incident directly. Others pointedly put on headphones or immersed themselves in books, unwilling to align with either side. Jordan approached Zara with a tablet. I've drafted an incident report with the information I have. Could you review it for accuracy? As Zara read through the clinical description of events, the reality of what had happened hit her anew. The report referred to her as victim and Patricia as aggressor. Words like deliberate, racial slur, and assault appeared in black and white. This wasn't just a bad experience to overcome with dignity and perseverance. It was a potential legal matter. Is this necessary? She asked quietly. If you want accountability, yes, Jordan answered honestly. But ultimately, it's your decision how to proceed. Before Zara could respond, a commotion arose from Patricia's seat. She had, received a call that apparently displeased her tremendously. What do you mean you can't reach him? She hissed loudly into her phone. I don't care if he's in a board meeting. This is Patricia Whitfield. I've contributed to every company fundraiser for the past decade. Jordan exchanged glances with Lisa. Patricia's influential connections might be less solid than she'd claimed. Dr. Reynolds completed another check of Zara's burns, his expression concerned. These will need proper medical documentation. The facial burns could leave temporary marks, if not treated correctly. Zara's hand instinctively went to her cheek, panic flashing across her face. Marks? For the interview? Possibly. I'd recommend seeing an emergency physician immediately upon landing. The interview that had been her singular focus now competed with medical concerns, potential legal proceedings, and unexpected social media attention. The carefully planned path to professional success had suddenly forked in multiple uncharted directions. During the next hour, Jordan strategized with the other crew members, Zara consulted with Dr. Reynolds about treatment options, and Patricia made increasingly desperate phone calls. The social dynamics in the cabin continued to evolve, with more passengers discreetly offering support to Zara after witnessing Patricia's ongoing entitled behavior. Then, midway through the flight, Patricia made a crucial miscalculation. Frustrated by her inability to reach anyone with sufficient authority to intervene, she approached Zara directly while Jordan was in the galley. "This has gotten out of hand," Patricia stated flatly. "We both know it was an accident that you're exploiting for attention." Zara looked up from her damaged notes, momentarily speechless at Patricia's audacity. "I'm prepared to be generous," Patricia continued, lowering her voice. $10,000 to cover your inconvenience. In exchange, you'll tell the flight attendant it was a misunderstanding. We both move on with our lives." Kiana, who had been pretending to nap nearby, immediately began recording again. "You assaulted me," Zara replied, finding her voice. "You poured hot coffee on me deliberately and made a racist comment afterward." "Allegedly," Patricia smirked. "It would be your word against mine, and trust me, in these circles my word carries significant weight. Take the offer. It's more than fair for spilled coffee." Dr. Reynolds cleared his throat. "I believe there are multiple witnesses who would disagree with your characterization, ma'am." Patricia's expression hardened. "Nobody asked you, old man. This is between me and her." "Actually," Jordan interjected, returning from the galley, "this involves the airline now. Please return to your seat, Ms. Whitfield. This is your final warning before I invoke the captain's authority to restrain unruly passengers." Patricia spun toward Jordan, jabbing a finger. "When we land, your career is over. I've contributed more to this airline's bottom line than you'll earn in your lifetime." "When we land," Jordan replied calmly, "there will be representatives from airline security waiting to take statements. I suggest you consider your next actions carefully." As Patricia stormed back to her seat, Jordan turned to Zara. "Are you all right? Did she threaten you?" "She offered me money to say it was a misunderstanding," Zara replied, still processing the interaction. "I got it all," Kiana confirmed, waving her phone. "Attempted witness tampering. That's another charge to add to the list." The walls seemed to be closing in on Patricia Whitfield as her power plays failed one by one. But Jordan knew from experience that cornered adversaries often became more dangerous. Throughout her career, she'd seen countless incidents where initial accountability dissolved once planes landed and passengers dispersed. Good intentions rarely translated to justice when wealth and connections entered the equation. As they passed the midpoint of their journey to Chicago, Jordan faced her own decision point. Following standard protocol meant filing reports that would likely disappear into administrative purgatory. Patricia would leverage her connections, the airline would prioritize avoiding litigation from a high-value customer, and Zara would be left with burns, ruined interview materials, and another lesson in how systems protected the privileged. Standard protocol wasn't going to be enough this time. Jordan Pierce had spent 15 years building an exemplary career, earning the respect of colleagues and supervisors alike. Now she needed to decide how much of that security she was willing to risk to ensure that what happened on her flight didn't become just another incident buried by corporate indifference. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Flight attendants, prepare for potential turbulence ahead." The timing of the announcement seemed almost poetic to Jordan. Indeed, turbulence lay ahead. Not just atmospheric, but moral and professional. The choice she made in the next hour would determine far more than the outcome of this flight. At 30,000 feet, the digital world moves just as quickly as on the ground. As United Airlines Flight 1143 continued toward Chicago, the hashtag "Jarred Justice for Zara" was already trending in 3 major cities. Kiana Washington's initial video, snippet, showing Patricia Whitfield deliberately pouring coffee and making her "your kind" comment, had been viewed over 50,000 times and shared by several influential accounts dedicated to exposing racism. The airline's corporate communications team had noticed. 3 rows behind the cockpit, Jordan's phone buzzed with a message from Marisol Diaz. "Video circulating. Executives aware. Crisis team activated. What's your status?" Jordan typed a quick reply. Victim stable, minor burns. Aggressor still making threats. Captain supporting crew actions, landing in 90 minutes. Marisol's response came quickly. VP Passenger Relations wants to speak with you upon landing. Legal team will be present. Document everything. Jordan's stomach tightened. The involvement of both the vice president and legal department suggested the situation had escalated beyond a typical passenger incident. Whether that worked in her favor or against her remained to be seen. Meanwhile, Patricia was experiencing her own digital reckoning. Her assistant had finally connected her with someone from the airline's executive office, but the conversation wasn't proceeding as she'd anticipated. "What do you mean you're gathering facts?" she hissed into her phone. "I've told you the facts. This vindictive flight attendant is creating a scene over a simple accident." Her voice dropped to an urgent whisper. "Charles plays golf with your CEO monthly. He won't be pleased to hear how I've been treated." But something had shifted in the power dynamic. The voice on the other end seemed less concerned with Patricia's connections than with the rapidly spreading video and hashtag. "Fine," Patricia eventually snapped, ending the call. Her complexion had taken on a mottled redness that clashed with her designer blouse. For perhaps the first time in decades, Patricia Whitfield was discovering the limits of her influence. Across the aisle, Zara was facing her own crisis. As the adrenaline of the incident subsided, the practical implications of her situation became clearer. Her interview suit was ruined. Her carefully prepared materials were damaged beyond salvage. And according to Dr. Reynolds, the burns on her face and neck required proper medical attention. Attention that would consume the critical hours she'd planned to use for final interview preparations. "The Harrington interview has a strict business formal dress code," she explained to Jordan, who had stopped to check on her condition. "My backup outfit isn't nearly formal enough. Even if I could find a store open when we land, nothing off the rack will fit properly without alterations." Jordan nodded sympathetically. "One problem at a time. First, we need to get you medical attention. Then we'll figure out the rest." "You don't understand," Zara insisted, her composure finally cracking slightly. "This interview represents years of work. Opportunities like this don't come along often for—" She caught herself before saying, "people like me." But the implication hung in the air. "I understand more than you might think," Jordan replied quietly. "But right now, your health is the priority." Dr. Reynolds, who had been monitoring Zara's condition throughout the flight, returned from a conversation with another passenger. "I've spoken with the chief resident at Northwestern Memorial's burn unit. She'll meet you personally when we land to expedite treatment." "Thank you, but I can't possibly—" "Young lady," Dr. Reynolds interrupted gently. "I understand your interview is important, but these burns need proper documentation by a medical professional, especially if you decide to pursue legal action." The word legal sent another wave of anxiety through Zara. Her entire career strategy had been built on excellence and professionalism, not lawsuits and social media attention. Every instinct warned that becoming known as that black woman who sued over coffee could create exactly the kind of label she'd worked so hard to avoid. While Zara wrestled with these concerns, Jordan received another message, this one from the captain. "Airline security and PR team will meet aircraft. Executives requesting you isolate Whitfield from other passengers upon landing to avoid further incidents. Use caution." The subtext was clear. The airline was already in damage control mode, more concerned about additional negative publicity than addressing the underlying issue. It was a pattern Jordan had seen repeatedly throughout her career. As Jordan strategized with her crew about landing procedures, she noticed Patricia engaged in yet another tense phone conversation. This time, Patricia's expression shifted from anger to something approaching fear as she listened to whoever was speaking. When she ended the call, she immediately opened her tablet and began frantically searching for something. Jordan's curiosity was satisfied moments later when Lisa showed her own phone screen. Patricia Whitfield's name was now trending alongside Daurer's Coffee Karen and Lauren First Class Racist. Someone had identified her from the video, and her company's social media accounts were being flooded with comments demanding action. The digital wildfire was spreading beyond anyone's control. With less than an hour until landing, the cabin's atmosphere remained charged with tension. Patricia had fallen into a stony silence, furiously typing emails with occasional glances toward Zara that ranged from contemptuous to calculating. Several passengers who had initially remained neutral now openly expressed support for Zara, offering everything from legal contacts to interview clothing. Professor Reynolds continued monitoring Zara's burns while simultaneously making calls to colleagues at Northwestern. "The chief resident is arranging for a plastic surgeon to assess you immediately," he explained. "They'll document everything and provide treatment to minimize any lasting effects." "I appreciate everything you're doing," Zara said sincerely. "But my interview, one step at a time," he counseled. "Your health first, then your career." It was advice Zara had never had the luxury of following. Throughout her life, every opportunity had felt so precarious that pausing for self-care seemed equivalent to surrender. Excellence had been her only shield against the prejudices and barriers that confronted her daily. The idea of postponing the interview felt like conceding defeat to Patricia Whitfield and everything she represented. Jordan, observing Zara's internal struggle, made a decision. During a brief break, she stepped into the galley and made several rapid calls to contacts throughout Chicago, other flight attendants, former colleagues, and community connections. By the time she returned to the cabin, she had the beginnings of a plan. "Ms. Johnson," she said formally, aware of nearby passengers' interest, "I've arranged for a company representative to meet you upon landing to discuss accommodations and assistance." What Jordan didn't mention was that she had activated her personal network rather than relying solely on official airline response. Years of witnessing corporate priorities taught her that systems designed to protect the airline's interests rarely delivered justice to those harmed. As the captain announced their initial descent into Chicago O'Hare International Airport, the various parties made their final preparations. Patricia straightened her clothing and applied fresh makeup, clearly anticipating cameras. Zara gathered her damaged materials, wincing as the movement pulled at her burned skin. Jordan briefed her crew on landing procedures, emphasizing the importance of detailed documentation. None of them noticed the turbulence warning light activating on the cockpit dashboard, signaling atmospheric instability ahead that would keep everyone locked in their current positions longer than anticipated. The plane began its descent through cloud cover, the city lights of Chicago appearing and disappearing through wisps of vapor. In first class, the usual pre-landing rustling of passengers gathering belongings was replaced by tense anticipation. For Patricia Whitfield, Zara Johnson, and Jordan Pierce, landing would not mark the end of their journey, but rather the beginning of a new, more complex challenge. As the landing gear deployed with a mechanical groan, Jordan caught Zara's eye and nodded reassuringly. Whatever happened next, she had made her choice. Some battles were worth fighting, regardless of personal cost. The unexpected turbulence during descent had created a pressure cooker atmosphere in the cabin. With the seatbelt sign illuminated and all passengers and crew required to remain seated, the tension between Patricia Whitfield and Zara Johnson had no outlet. The two women sat merely feet apart, connected by an incident that would alter both their trajectories in ways neither could fully anticipate. Jordan Pierce watched the cabin from her jump seat, mind racing through potential scenarios for their arrival. Standard protocol dictated a specific sequence: secure the aircraft, deplane priority passengers, coordinate with ground staff regarding any incidents, complete documentation. But Jordan knew from experience that once passengers dispersed into the terminal, accountability often vanished with them. The plane bucked and shuddered through another patch of rough air. Patricia clutched her armrests, knuckles whitening, while Zara remained eerily still, as if the physical turbulence paled in comparison to the emotional turbulence she'd already endured. Something shifted in Jordan's expression as the aircraft stabilized momentarily. Decision crystallized into resolve. 15 years of following protocol had taught her its limitations. Sometimes justice required creating new pathways when established ones failed. She unclipped her seatbelt during a smooth patch and moved swiftly to the galley where the public address system was located. Her colleague Lisa raised an eyebrow. "What are you doing?" Lisa whispered. "We're still in descent." "Something I should have done a long time ago," Jordan replied, picking up the handset. The captain's voice crackled through her headset. "Jordan, everything okay back there?" requesting permission to address the cabin captain. A brief pause. Is this about the incident? Yes, sir, I believe it's necessary. Another pause, longer this time. Keep it professional. You're on the record. Understood, Captain. Jordan took a deep breath and pressed the broadcast button. The familiar chime sounded throughout the cabin, capturing every passenger's attention. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your lead flight attendant, Jordan Pierce speaking. Her voice emerged stronger and clearer than she'd anticipated. As we prepare to land in Chicago, I want to address a situation that occurred during our flight today. Throughout the cabin, passengers who had been dozing or distracted sat up straighter. Patricia Whitfield's head snapped toward the galley, eyes widening in disbelief. On today's flight, we witnessed behavior that contradicts not just airline policy, but basic human dignity. At United Airlines, we proudly transport people of all backgrounds, identities, and walks of life. Discrimination and harassment have no place in our society, and certainly no place on our aircraft. Patricia fumbled with her call button, pressing it repeatedly to no effect. Jordan had disabled the system before beginning her announcement. While I cannot discuss specific details of the incident, Jordan continued, I want to make something absolutely clear. Every person on this aircraft deserves respect. Every passenger who boards with a valid ticket has earned their seat, regardless of race, gender, religion, or any other characteristic. Murmurs of approval rippled through the cabin. Several passengers nodded emphatically. Kiana Washington had her phone recording again, capturing Jordan's every word. To the individual who experienced mistreatment today, on behalf of the airline and our crew, I extend our deepest apologies. What happened to you was unacceptable, and we will do everything in our power to ensure it is addressed appropriately. Zara looked up, tears glistening in her eyes as Jordan continued. To those who witnessed this incident, thank you to everyone who offered support and stood against injustice. Your actions remind us that while one person can cause harm, a community can provide healing. Jordan paused, knowing her next words could end her career. And to anyone who believes their status or connections place them above treating others with basic dignity, you are mistaken. No first-class ticket, frequent flyer, status, or corporate relationship exempts anyone from human decency. Patricia's face contorted with rage. She unbuckled her seatbelt despite the illuminated sign and half rose before Dr. Reynolds firmly shook his head, causing her to reluctantly sink back into her seat. When we land, representatives from airline management will be meeting our flight. If you witnessed today's incident and wish to provide a statement, crew members will direct you accordingly. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for flying United. Jordan replaced the handset, her heart pounding. Through the galley curtain, she could see Patricia already on her phone, presumably calling whoever she believed could salvage her situation. But something had fundamentally changed in the cabin's atmosphere. Where there had been uncomfortable silence and averted gazes, there was now a palpable sense of collective resolve. Lisa squeezed Jordan's arm. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or career suicide. Probably both, Jordan acknowledged with a grim smile. As the aircraft completed its final approach, Jordan used the remaining minutes to coordinate with her crew. Miguel would escort Patricia to the waiting airline representatives. Lisa would assist Zara to the medical team Professor Reynolds had arranged. Jordan herself would manage documentation and witness statements. The wheels touched down with a squeal of rubber on tarmac. As the aircraft taxied toward the gate, Jordan received a message from Marisol. Your PA announcement has already reached executives. VP Passenger Relations wants to see you immediately upon arrival. What were you thinking? Jordan didn't respond. There would be time for explanations later. The aircraft docked at the jetway, and the seatbelt sign finally extinguished. Before anyone could move, Jordan made one final announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special deplaning procedure today. Please remain seated until instructed. Otherwise, she approached Zara first. Ms. Johnson, medical personnel are waiting to assist you. We've arranged for priority deplaning. Zara gathered her damaged belongings. Thank you for everything, she said quietly. Not everyone would have risked their position like that. It was the right thing to do, Jordan replied simply. Now, about your interview tomorrow. I've made some calls. A colleague's sister works at Nordstrom on Michigan Avenue. They're holding the store open late for you tonight. And another flight attendant's husband is a printing specialist. He can reproduce your materials overnight. Zara looked stunned. Why would you do all this for me? Because 15 years ago someone did it for me, Jordan answered. Now go get the medical attention you need. I'll handle things here. As Zara was escorted off the aircraft, Jordan approached Patricia, who was still furiously texting. Ms. Whitfield, representatives from airline security are waiting to speak with you. Patricia looked up with undisguised contempt. You've made the biggest mistake of your pathetic career. By this time tomorrow, you'll be lucky to find work serving fast food. Jordan maintained her professional demeanor. Please follow my colleague to the gate, ma'am. As Miguel escorted Patricia toward the exit, Jordan addressed the remaining passengers. If anyone witnessed the incident and wishes to provide a statement, please remain seated. Airline representatives will board to collect your information. The response was overwhelming. Nearly a dozen passengers stayed behind, including Dr. Reynolds and Kiana Washington. Each provided detailed accounts of what they had witnessed, many expressing outrage at Patricia's behavior and admiration for Jordan's response. By the time Jordan finally deplaned, the jetway was crowded with airline personnel, security officers, customer service representatives, and a grim-faced woman in an executive suit, whom Jordan recognized as Vivian Hartley, Vice President of Passenger Relations. Pierce, my office. Now, Hartley stated flatly. Jordan nodded, prepared for the consequences of her actions. As she followed Hartley through the terminal, she noticed a crowd gathering near the gate, reporters alerted by social media to the developing story. Patricia Whitfield was visible at the center, gesturing angrily while airline security attempted to move her to a private area. In that moment, Jordan felt an unexpected sense of peace. Whatever happened next, whether reprimand, suspension, or termination, she had done what was right rather than what was safe. After 15 years of navigating a system that often prioritized convenience over justice, she had finally chosen a side unequivocally. Her phone buzzed with a message from Lisa. Zara safely with medical team. Dr. Reynolds overseeing everything. Also, you're trending on Twitter. Dar's Jordan the Just. Despite everything, Jordan smiled. The path forward would be challenging, but for the first time in her career, it felt aligned with her deepest values. What would you have done in Jordan's position? Would you have risked your career to stand up against injustice, or played it safe to protect your livelihood? Comment number 1 if you believe Jordan made the right choice with her powerful announcement. Comment number 2 if you think she should have followed standard procedures instead. Like and subscribe if you believe in the power of everyday heroes who refuse to be silent witnesses. But now the question remains. With Zara rushing to medical treatment, Jordan facing professional consequences, and Patricia attempting to use her connections to escape accountability, how will this turbulent journey end? Will justice prevail, or will privilege once again shield the powerful from consequences? The administrative offices of United Airlines at O'Hare International Airport buzzed with unusual activity for 8:30 p.m. Conference rooms normally dark at this hour blazed with fluorescent lighting as executives, legal representatives, and public relations specialists gathered in emergency session. In passenger relations, Vice President Vivian Hartley's corner office had become command central for crisis management. Jordan Pierce sat alone in an adjacent waiting room, still in her flight uniform, reviewing her incident report for the 5th time. The document detailed Patricia Whitfield's actions with clinical precision. The initial verbal harassment, the deliberate coffee assault, the racist comment afterward, and the attempted bribe to silence Zara. 15 years of impeccable service had taught Jordan how to document incidents thoroughly, though she'd never faced one with such personal significance. Through the partially open door, she could hear fragments of heated discussion. The video has over 200,000 views already. Whitfield's attorney is threatening a defamation suit. Board members are calling for updates. If we discipline Pierce, it looks like we're punishing a whistleblower. If we don't, it sets a precedent for crew members going rogue. Jordan's phone vibrated with a message from Lisa. Medical update. Zara's burns documented. Doctor confirms first and minor second degree. Northwestern plastic surgeon says proper treatment should prevent scarring. She's been released with medication and detailed care instructions. At least that was something. Positive. Jordan replied quickly, "Thanks for update. Still waiting to learn my fate. How's the Nordstrom plan progressing?" Friend's sister came through. Store manager keeping limited staff until 10 p.m. for private shopping appointment. Chicago. Crew handling transport from hospital directly there. Jordan allowed herself a small smile. Whatever happened to her career, at least Zara would have appropriate clothing for her interview tomorrow. The airline might fail Jordan, but her personal network of flight attendants across the country remained unfailingly supportive. The door opened fully, and Vivian Hartley appeared, her expression unreadable. "Come in, Pierce." Jordan entered the office to find a tableau of corporate power. Besides Hartley, the room contained Harold Zimmerman, the airline's chief counsel, Diane Rodriguez, head of public relations, and on a video screen, CEO Marshall Bennett himself, looking significantly less polished than in his corporate headshots. "Ms. Pierce," Bennett began without preamble, "you've created quite a situation." Jordan maintained her professional demeanor. "I responded to an incident of assault and racial discrimination on my flight, sir. By making an unauthorized PA announcement that potentially exposed the airline to litigation," Zimmerman interjected. "By standing up for a passenger who was physically assaulted and racially insulted," Jordan countered calmly. Hartley tapped a pen against her desk. "The passenger in question, Patricia Whitfield, has significant relationships with this airline. She's been a platinum member for 15 years and sits on the board of 2 companies that are major corporate clients. And Zara Johnson is a Harvard Law graduate traveling to a career-defining interview who was assaulted because of her race," Jordan replied. "Which relationship should take priority?" The room fell silent for a moment before Bennett spoke again. "Ms. Pierce, I've reviewed your service record. 15 years, consistently excellent evaluations, multiple commendations for passenger care. You're not someone who makes impulsive decisions." "No, sir." "Then help us understand why you chose to address the entire aircraft rather than following standard protocol." Jordan had anticipated this question. Standard protocol would have resulted in Ms. Whitfield being quietly escorted off the plane, while Ms. Johnson was left to handle her injuries, damaged property, and disrupted plans on her own. "I've seen this pattern repeatedly throughout my career. Incidents documented, reports filed, and ultimately buried because addressing them might inconvenience valuable customers or generate negative publicity." Rodriguez winced visibly. Zimmerman began to object, but Bennett raised a hand to silence him. "Continue, Ms. Pierce." "Sir, I witnessed a young woman being assaulted and racially abused. Multiple passengers captured video evidence. The perpetrator then attempted to bribe the victim into silence. Following standard protocol would have meant prioritizing Ms. Whitfield's comfort over Ms. Johnson's dignity and safety. I chose differently." Before anyone could respond, Hartley's phone buzzed. She checked the screen and grimaced. "Patricia Whitfield's attorney has arrived in the main terminal with a legal team. They're demanding immediate access to you, Ms. Pierce, and threatening to add personal defamation to their lawsuit against the airline." "Personal defamation?" Jordan repeated incredulously. "I never mentioned her name in my announcement." "Apparently, they believe your description was sufficiently specific to identify her," Zimmerman explained, already gathering his materials. "I need to address this immediately." As Zimmerman hurried from the room, Rodriguez's assistant entered with a tablet. "Ma'am, you should see this. It's trending across all platforms." Rodriguez took the tablet, her eyes widening as she scrolled. The hashtags "Honor Justice for Zara" and "Jordan the Just" are trending nationally. Multiple passengers have posted their own videos and accounts. "We've received media inquiries from every major network." Bennett leaned forward on the video screen. "What's the public sentiment?" "Overwhelmingly supportive of the flight attendant and passenger," Rodriguez reported. "Several influential accounts are calling for a boycott of the airline if we don't take appropriate action against Whitfield." The dynamics in the room shifted perceptibly. Corporate calculation was rapidly realigning around public opinion. Bennett turned his attention back to Jordan. Ms. Pierce, while we appreciate your concern for passenger welfare, your unauthorized announcement placed the airline in a difficult position. We'll need to conduct a full investigation before determining. Appropriate. He was interrupted by a commotion outside the office. Raised voices echoed down the hallway, growing louder by the second. You cannot prevent me from speaking to your executives, a familiar voice demanded. Do you have any idea who I am? The door burst open to reveal Patricia Whitfield, still in her travel clothes but now accompanied by a silver-haired man in an expensive suit. Behind them, a flustered administrative assistant apologized repeatedly. I'm sorry, Ms. Hartley. They pushed past security. It's all right, Susan, Hartley replied, rising from her chair. Ms. Whitfield, this is highly irregular. Patricia ignored her, focusing instead on the video screen. Marshall, thank God. You need to get your people under control. This flight attendant, she jabbed a finger toward Jordan, has deliberately misrepresented an unfortunate accident and whipped up a social media mob against me. Bennett's expression remained neutral. Patricia, I understand you're upset, but this isn't the appropriate forum. Not appropriate? Patricia's voice rose sharply. I've been a platinum member for 15 years. Charles and I hosted you at our Hamptons house last summer, and now your employee has painted me as some kind of racist over a spilled coffee. The silver-haired man placed a restraining hand on Patricia's arm. Perhaps I should introduce myself. Jonathan Mercer, legal counsel for Ms. Whitfield. We're prepared to file substantial claims against both the airline and Ms. Pierce personally, unless this situation is resolved immediately and to our satisfaction. Jordan maintained her composure, though internally her heart raced. Personal liability could be financially devastating, even if she ultimately prevailed in court. And what would resolution entail? Hartley asked cautiously. First, immediate termination of this employee, Mercer stated flatly. Second, a public statement from the airline confirming the incident was an accident mischaracterized by staff. Third, compensation for the reputational damage Ms. Whitfield has suffered. Jordan expected immediate capitulation from the executives. Instead, Rodriguez was focused intently on her tablet, rapidly scrolling through something. Ms. Hartley, Rodriguez interrupted quietly. You need to see this immediately. She passed the tablet to Hartley, whose expression transformed as she viewed the screen. Without comment, she handed the device to Bennett's assistant, who held it up to the camera. Bennett's eyebrows rose dramatically. Patricia, perhaps you should see this before we continue this discussion. Rodriguez turned the tablet toward Patricia and Mercer. On the screen was a compilation video created by Kiana Washington, showing multiple angles of the coffee incident captured by different passengers. The final clip showed Patricia approaching Zara mid-flight, offering money to make the misunderstanding go away. The video had already accumulated over 500,000 views. Patricia's face drained of color. That's taken out of context. We have 12 passenger statements corroborating Ms. Pierce's account, Hartley stated, including one from Dr. Martin Reynolds, professor of medicine at Northwestern, who treated the burns you inflicted. Minor burns, Patricia protested, her voice rising to a shrill pitch. She's exaggerating for attention. Jordan finally spoke. Ms. Whitfield, I've been a flight attendant for 15 years. I've seen thousands of beverage spills. What you did was deliberate, and your comment afterward, accidents happen to your kind, made your intent unmistakable. You have no proof, Patricia began, but was interrupted by another commotion at the door. Zara Johnson stood in the entrance, her face still showing the redness of coffee burns, but her posture erect with dignity. Behind her stood Dr. Reynolds, and surprisingly, another executive whom Jordan recognized as Thomas Harrington, CEO of Harrington & Associates, the very law firm where Zara was scheduled to interview. I believe I'm the proof, Zara stated quietly, along with medical documentation, multiple witness statements, and video evidence from several angles. Patricia's attorney placed a restraining hand on her arm, clearly recognizing the deteriorating, situation. We should continue this discussion through proper channels. No, Zara interrupted. I've spent my entire life navigating proper channels that somehow never deliver justice when it's most needed. She turned to address Bennett on the video screen. Sir, I came here tonight not to demand compensation or threaten litigation, but to ensure that Jordan Pierce doesn't suffer professional consequences for doing what was right when everyone else was willing to look away. Bennett studied Zara thoughtfully. Ms. Johnson, isn't it? I understand you're a Harvard Law graduate. Yes, sir. May I ask why you're here rather than preparing for your interview tomorrow? Zara straightened her shoulders. Because some principles matter more than personal advancement. Ms. Pierce risked her career to stand up for mine. I couldn't do any less in return. Thomas Harrington stepped forward. If I may, I came to personally ensure Ms. Johnson has everything she needs for tomorrow's interview. Our firm values individuals who demonstrate ethical courage under pressure. That quality is far rarer than academic credentials. The implicit message wasn't lost on anyone in the room. Harrington and Associates, one of the airline's own legal partners, was signaling their position in this conflict. Bennett cleared his throat. Patricia, I think it would be best if we suspended this discussion while all parties review the evidence more thoroughly. In the meantime, given the public nature of this incident, United Airlines will be issuing a statement condemning discrimination and reaffirming our commitment to passenger safety. Patricia's face contorted with rage and disbelief. Marshall, after everything, Jonathan, Bennett addressed her attorney, please escort your client to a more private location. Our team will contact you tomorrow regarding next steps. As security personnel appeared to guide Patricia and her attorney away, the balance of power completed its seismic shift. Patricia's final glare at Jordan contained 15 years of entitlement suddenly confronted by accountability. When they had gone, Bennett turned his attention to Jordan. Ms. Pierce, while we appreciate your dedication to passenger welfare, there are still questions about protocol that need to be addressed. For now, you'll be placed on administrative leave with pay pending a full investigation. It wasn't termination, but neither was it vindication. Jordan nodded, accepting that corporate mechanisms moved at their own pace, even when bending toward justice. As the meeting concluded and the participants dispersed, Jordan found herself alone in the hallway with Zara and Dr. Reynolds. How are you feeling? Jordan asked, gesturing toward Zara's visible burns. Better than I expected, Zara replied. Dr. Reynolds has been incredible, and apparently having a plastic surgeon monitoring your case helps fast-track treatment at the ER. Reynolds waved away the compliment. Least I could do, though I'm missing the last act of Rigoletto at the Lyric Opera. Jordan smiled. I can't thank you enough for your support. No thanks necessary, he replied firmly. Though I will be sending a strongly worded letter to your executives about the value of employees who demonstrate moral courage. As Reynolds excused himself to make a call, Zara turned to Jordan. Your colleagues told me about the Nordstrom arrangement and the printing specialist for my materials. Why go to such lengths for a stranger? Jordan considered the question. Because 15 years ago, I was the only black flight attendant in my training class. I experienced discrimination from both passengers and colleagues. One supervisor, Marisol Diaz, went above and beyond to ensure I wasn't pushed out of a career I loved. Today was my chance to pay that forward. Zara nodded, understanding passing between them. What happens next for you? Administrative, leave while they investigate. Standard procedure when they're not sure whether to fire you or promote you, Jordan replied with a wry smile. Either way, I can live with my decisions today. As they walked toward the terminal exit, Jordan's phone buzzed with a notification. The airline's official statement had been released, condemning discrimination in clear terms without naming specific individuals. It wasn't complete justice, but it was movement in the right direction. Outside, camera crews had gathered, alerted by the viral spread of the story. Jordan and Zara exchanged glances, both recognizing that their private incident had transformed into a public referendum on accountability and racial justice. Ready? Jordan asked. Zara straightened her shoulders. As ready as I'll ever be. Together, They stepped into the glare of the cameras, two women from different worlds united by a common experience of injustice and a shared determination to challenge it. Dawn broke over Chicago's skyline, painting the glass towers in hues of amber and gold. In a downtown hotel room, Zara Johnson had been awake for hours, applying medicated ointment to the burns on her face and neck. The redness had subsided somewhat, overnight, but makeup would still be necessary to present the polished appearance expected at Harrington and Associates. Her phone hadn't stopped buzzing since the previous evening. Messages from family and friends who had seen the viral videos. Interview requests from news outlets, supportive comments from strangers. Even her parents, initially concerned about her physical injuries, had shifted to worrying about the professional implications of such public attention. Focus on the interview, her father had advised during their late-night call. Let everything else wait. Easier said than done. The navy blue suit from Nordstrom, rushed through alterations last night by the store's tailor who had stayed late after hearing her story, hung perfectly on the closet door. The replacement interview, materials, meticulously reproduced by Jordan's printing specialist contact, sat neatly in a new leather portfolio. Externally, everything was prepared. Internally, Zara struggled to recenter herself. Harvard Law hadn't prepared her for becoming the central figure in a viral racism incident the night before a career-defining interview. Her carefully constructed, professional identity, brilliant, composed, non-threatening, had been complicated by circumstances beyond her control. Now she was also a victim, an activist, a symbol. The weight of these additional identities pressed upon her as she applied concealer to the burn marks on her cheek. Across town, Jordan Pierce sat in her apartment's small kitchen, reviewing the terms of her administrative leave for the third time. The airline's HR representative had been professionally vague about the timeline and potential outcomes. A thorough investigation could mean anything from a week to months. Meanwhile, her actions had ignited fierce debate within the company. Messages of support from fellow flight attendants across the country competed with warnings from more cautious colleagues about rocking the boat. Jordan's phone rang. Marisol Diaz, her longtime mentor and advocate within the airline hierarchy. "You've stirred up quite the hornet's nest," Marisol began without preamble. "Not intentionally," Jordan replied. "How bad is it?" "Complicated. The executives are split. Some see this as a PR nightmare that you exacerbated with your announcement. Others recognize you probably saved the airline from an even worse scandal by addressing it directly. And Patricia Whitfield?" Marisol's voice hardened. Her company's board called an emergency meeting this morning. Apparently they're not thrilled about their CMO being the face of viral racism. Her attorney is still making noise about lawsuits, but it's mostly posturing now that the video evidence is so widespread. Jordan allowed herself a small measure of satisfaction. "And Zara? Any updates?" "Our customer relations team arranged a car service to take her to her interview. Small gesture, but at least someone's thinking clearly." Marisol paused. "You did the right thing, Jordan. But right doesn't always mean easy." "I know," Jordan acknowledged. "I'm prepared for whatever comes next." After ending the call, Jordan opened her laptop to find her own inbox flooded. Among the messages was an email from a producers group for a major morning news program, requesting an interview. Another came from a prominent civil rights organization, expressing support. Most surprising was a message from United's flight attendants union representative, requesting a meeting to discuss the implications of her case for workplace policy. In 15 years of service, Jordan had always viewed herself as just one flight attendant doing her job with integrity. Now, suddenly, her actions had catapulted her into a broader conversation about corporate accountability and racial justice. It was both empowering and terrifying. By 9:30 a.m., Zara stood in the gleaming lobby of the Harrington and Associates building. The receptionist checked her name against the appointment list, giving no indication of recognizing her from the news. "They're expecting you on the 47th floor. The elevator will require keycard access." She handed Zara a temporary visitor badge. As the elevator ascended, Zara used the mirrored walls to check her appearance one final time. The navy suit fit perfectly. Her hair was impeccable. The makeup concealed most of the visible burns. Physically, she was as prepared as possible. Mentally, she worked to compartmentalize yesterday's trauma from today's opportunity. 47th floor, announced the elevator. The doors opened, to reveal an elegantly appointed reception area with sweeping views of Lake Michigan. A polished young associate greeted her. "Ms. Johnson, welcome to Harrington & Associates. I'm Taylor Williams, first-year associate. I'll be escorting you today." Zara followed Taylor through glass-walled corridors where attorneys and paralegals moved with purposeful efficiency. She couldn't help noticing that in this prestigious firm, she encountered only one other black face, a man who appeared to be in maintenance. "The partners are very impressed with your credentials," Taylor commented as they walked. "Harvard Law Review is quite the achievement." "Thank you," Zara replied automatically, wondering if Taylor knew about yesterday's incident. If so, she gave no indication. They arrived at a large conference room where 4 people awaited. 3 senior partners and Thomas Harrington himself. The CEO Zara had briefly met the previous evening at the airport. "Ms. Johnson," Harrington greeted her, rising from his chair. "Thank you for joining us, especially given yesterday's unfortunate circumstances." So they did know. Of course they knew. In the age of social media, how could they not? "Thank you for the opportunity," Zara replied professionally, taking the offered seat. The oldest partner, a man in his 60s with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses, spoke first. "Perhaps we should address the elephant in the room. We're all aware of the incident on your flight yesterday. Are you comfortable proceeding with the interview today? We would completely understand if you preferred to reschedule." The offer seemed genuine, but Zara recognized the test embedded within it. How she handled this moment would reveal as much about her professional judgment as any rehearsed answer to standard interview questions. "I appreciate your concern," she replied carefully. "While yesterday was challenging, I believe separating personal difficulties from professional obligations is an essential skill for any attorney. I've prepared extensively for this opportunity and would prefer to proceed as scheduled." Approving. Nods around the table suggested she'd navigated the first hurdle successfully. What followed was the most rigorous interview of Zara's life. Substantive legal questions about recent cases, hypothetical client scenarios requiring on-the-spot analysis, probing inquiries about her academic choices and career aspirations. Throughout, Zara maintained her composure, drawing on years of preparation and an innate ability to perform under pressure. Then came the question she'd been both expecting and dreading. "Ms. Johnson," began the female partner, a formidable litigator, named Eleanor Barnes, "one quality we value highly at Harrington is judgment under pressure. Could you describe a situation where you faced a difficult ethical challenge and how you navigated it?" The perfect opening to discuss yesterday's incident, or a trap. Zara considered her options carefully. Avoiding the topic entirely might seem evasive. Focusing too much on it risked being defined by victimhood rather than agency. "Throughout my academic and professional development, I've faced numerous situations requiring ethical judgment," Zara began thoughtfully. "However, rather than focusing on yesterday's incident, which you're already aware of, I'd like to share a different example." She proceeded to describe a complex situation from her clinical work at Harvard, involving a corporate client whose actions, while legally defensible, raised significant ethical concerns. Her analysis was nuanced, demonstrating both moral clarity and practical wisdom. As she concluded, Thomas Harrington leaned forward slightly. "That was an excellent example, Ms. Johnson. But I'm curious, if you don't mind my asking, about your perspective on yesterday's events. Not as a victim, but as a future attorney. How do you analyze that situation from a legal and ethical standpoint?" The question opened a door Zara hadn't expected, an invitation to demonstrate professional judgment about her personal experience. After a moment's consideration, she decided to walk through it. From a legal perspective, what occurred meets the definition of assault and battery, with potential claims for emotional distress and property damage. The racial component potentially elevates it to a hate incident, though that's a higher bar, to clear evidentially. Her voice remained measured and analytical. The airline could face liability questions regarding their duty of care, though Flight Attendant Pierce's intervention likely mitigates those concerns significantly. She paused briefly. From an ethical standpoint, the incident highlights several interesting tensions between customer service and basic human dignity, between corporate protocol and moral imperative, between institutional power and individual courage. Ms. Pierce chose to prioritize dignity and courage at potential professional cost. That decision resonates with me, as I believe the legal profession at its best serves similar values. The partners exchanged glances that Zara couldn't quite interpret. Had she said too much? Not enough? Thank you for that thoughtful analysis. Harrington nodded. One final question. Our firm represents several major airlines, though not the one you flew yesterday. How would you approach that potential conflict of interest? The subtext was clear. How would she handle representing clients whose actions might sometimes contradict her personal experiences with discrimination? I understand that effective counsel requires separating personal experiences from professional obligations, Zara replied. That said, I believe my perspective could actually benefit such clients by helping them recognize potential liability and reputational risks they might otherwise overlook. Diverse perspectives strengthen legal analysis rather than compromising it. The interview concluded shortly thereafter. As Taylor escorted her back to the elevator, Zara found it impossible to read whether her performance had secured the position. The partners had been professionally inscrutable throughout. The partners will be making their decision by the end of the week, Taylor informed her. Though between us, I've never seen them spend that much time with a candidate before. As Zara descended in the elevator, her phone buzzed with a notification. Another news outlet requesting comment on yesterday's incident. She silenced it without responding. Whatever the interview outcome, she would need to decide how to handle the unexpected public attention her experience had generated. Meanwhile, across town, Jordan Pierce was facing her own version of judgment. The flight attendants' union representative, a veteran named Carlos Rodriguez, sat across from her at a local coffee shop, reviewing her case notes. The company has placed you on administrative leave, which is standard procedure, he explained. But there's significant pressure from both sides. Some executives want to make an example of you for going outside protocol. Others recognize you're being hailed as a hero on social media, and punishing you would create another PR crisis. I'm prepared for either outcome, Jordan replied. Carlos studied her thoughtfully. Are you? 15 years with the company? That's a significant investment to risk over one incident. It wasn't just one incident, Jordan countered. It was the culmination of hundreds of incidents I've witnessed where protocol protected the powerful at the expense of the vulnerable. Yesterday was simply the moment I decided that pattern had to break. Carlos nodded slowly. Well, for what? It's worth. You've sparked quite a conversation among the membership. Many crew members have shared similar experiences, but felt powerless to address them. Your actions have created an opening to push for clearer anti-discrimination protocols in our next contract negotiation. The realization that her individual decision might catalyze systemic change was both humbling and energizing for Jordan. Throughout her career, she had navigated discrimination by working twice as hard and choosing her battles carefully. Perhaps that approach had its place, but so did moments of clear public resistance. As their meeting concluded, Jordan's phone rang. Vivian Hartley from airline headquarters. Ms. Pierce, the situation has developed overnight. Patricia Whitfield's company has placed her on administrative leave pending their own investigation. Her attorney has withdrawn the threat of personal litigation against you, though they're still making noise about the airline's handling of the incident. I see, Jordan replied cautiously. Additionally, our customer relations team has been overwhelmed with messages of support for your actions. The executive committee has scheduled an emergency meeting for this afternoon to discuss policy implications. Hartley paused. Your presence is requested. Jordan hadn't expected this development. In what capacity? As someone with frontline experience addressing discrimination incidents, Hartley replied carefully. This is not disciplinary, though I should be clear that the investigation into protocol violations remains ongoing. After ending the call, Jordan sat in momentary stillness, processing this shift. being invited to speak directly to executives, suggested her actions had forced a conversation that might otherwise have remained comfortably theoretical for those in positions of power. By afternoon, both women found themselves navigating unexpected terrain. Zara, leaving the Harrington building, was approached by a well-dressed woman who introduced herself as Amara Wilson, Executive Director of the Chicago Urban Justice Center. "Ms. Johnson, I apologize for the ambush, but I've been trying to reach you. We've been following what happened yesterday and would like to offer our support. Legal, logistical, whatever you need." "That's very kind," Zara replied, somewhat overwhelmed, "but I'm not looking to pursue legal action at the moment. I'm focused on my career next steps." Amara smiled knowingly. "Of course. But consider this. What happened to you happens to countless others who don't have Harvard law degrees or viral videos documenting their experience. Your visibility creates a unique platform to address systemic issues if you choose to use it." She handed Zara a business card. "No pressure, just know the option exists. We'd be honored to partner with you in whatever capacity serves your goals." The exchange left Zara contemplating questions that had simmered throughout her academic career. What obligations came with privilege, even when that privilege was hard-earned? How could she balance personal ambition with broader social responsibility? Jordan, meanwhile, found herself in a glass-walled conference room at airline headquarters, facing the executive committee, CEO Marshall Bennett, Vivian Hartley, and several division heads she'd never met in person. The discussion had already been underway for an hour, focusing on policy revisions and training protocols. "Ms. Pierce," Bennett addressed her directly, "you've been on the front lines for 15 years. In your experience, how prevalent are incidents like what occurred yesterday?" Jordan chose her words carefully. "The extreme nature of Ms. Whitfield's actions is uncommon, but the underlying dynamic, passengers believing their status entitles them to discriminatory behavior, occurs regularly. Most incidents are more subtle, but no less harmful." "And why don't these get reported through existing channels?" asked the operations director skeptically. "Because the reporting process often places greater burden on the targeted person than the aggressor," Jordan explained. "Additionally, crew members learn quickly which types of reports receive serious attention and which get filed away without action. When protocol consistently fails to deliver justice, people stop trusting the system." The blunt assessment created visible discomfort among several executives. Good, Jordan thought. Discomfort often preceded meaningful change. As the afternoon progressed, both Zara and Jordan found themselves at crossroads neither had anticipated 24 hours earlier. A single incident of discrimination, hardly unusual in their respective experiences, had catalyzed conversations with implications far beyond their individual circumstances. By evening, as Chicago's skyline transformed into a constellation of office lights, Zara received a call from Thomas Harrington himself. "Ms. Johnson, I wanted to personally inform you that our partners have made their decision. We would like to offer you the associate position at Harrington and Associates." Zara's professional composure momentarily faltered. "Thank you, Mr. Harrington. I'm honored by your confidence. There is one additional matter," he continued. "In light of recent events, our firm is establishing a special committee to review our corporate clients' diversity practices and anti-discrimination policies. Given your unique perspective and legal acumen, we believe you would be an exceptional contributor to this initiative. This would be in addition to your regular caseload, with appropriate compensation adjustments." The offer represented everything Zara had worked toward: prestigious employment, plus an opportunity to address systemic issues from within. Yet something in Harrington's tone triggered her carefully honed instincts. "May I ask what prompted this new committee?" she inquired, a slight hesitation. "Several factors, including growing client concerns about potential liability and reputational risks in this area." Translation: Your viral moment scared our corporate clients, and they want to get ahead of similar PR disasters. "I see," Zara replied thoughtfully. "Would I have been offered this committee role if yesterday's incident hadn't occurred?" "Frankly, no," Harrington admitted. "But exceptional circumstances often reveal exceptional capabilities. Your handling of yesterday's events demonstrated judgment and composure under extreme pressure, qualities we value highly. Zara thanked him again and promised to consider the offer carefully, requesting the formal details in writing. As she ended the call, she realized she was being presented with a fundamental choice about how her professional identity would intersect with her lived experience, a choice that would shape her career trajectory in ways both subtle and profound. Across town, Jordan's meeting with the executive committee was concluding. The discussion had been surprisingly substantive, resulting in commitments to review discrimination response protocols and enhance training for customer-facing staff. While no one had explicitly vindicated her actions, the engagement itself represented a form of acknowledgement. As the meeting dispersed, CEO Bennett approached her privately. "Ms. Pierce, I want to thank you for your candor today. It's not easy speaking truth to power." "Thank you for listening, sir." Bennett nodded thoughtfully. "The investigation into protocol violations will continue. Bureaucracy has its requirements. But I want you to know that I personally believe you acted with integrity yesterday. Whatever the formal outcome, your perspective has been valuable to this company." It wasn't full vindication, but it was recognition, perhaps the most a corporate structure could offer to someone who had challenged its fundamental operations. As night fell over Chicago, Zara and Jordan found themselves at a crossroads neither had anticipated when boarding yesterday's flight. A single incident, hardly unique in the landscape of American racial dynamics, had created ripples that continued to expand. How they chose to navigate these new waters would determine not just their individual paths forward, but potentially contribute to broader currents of accountability and change. The question that remained for both women: what happens after the viral moment fades? What responsibilities emerge when personal trauma transforms into public testimony? And how does one balance individual healing with the weight of unexpected advocacy? 1 week later, Chicago's early summer warmth had finally dispelled the lingering spring chill. In a quiet corner of Millennium Park, Zara Johnson sat on a bench overlooking the gleaming surface of Crown Fountain, watching children dash through the water with uninhibited joy. Her phone rested in her lap, displaying an email she'd read at least a dozen times since its arrival that morning. "Excuse me," a familiar voice called. "Is this seat taken?" Zara looked up to find Jordan Pierce approaching, dressed in civilian clothes rather than her flight uniform, a simple sundress that contrasted with her usual professional attire. "It's all yours," Zara smiled, moving her bag. "Thanks for agreeing to meet." "Of course, though I admit I was surprised to get your message." Jordan settled beside her. "How have you been?" Zara considered the question's multiple dimensions. Physically, her burns had healed well, leaving only faint marks that would fade completely with time. Professionally, her path had taken unexpected turns. Emotionally, she'd navigated waves of response to suddenly becoming a visible symbol of resilience against discrimination. "I'm finding my footing," she answered honestly. "And you? Any update on your situation?" Jordan nodded. "The airline completed their investigation yesterday. I've been formally reprimanded for failing to follow established protocol. That's going in my permanent file, but I've also been invited to join a new committee developing enhanced anti-discrimination procedures for passenger incidents." She smiled wryly. Punishment and promotion in the same memo. Corporate politics at its finest. "Congratulations, I think," Zara offered. "It's a win, all things considered. I get to keep my job and potentially help create better systems. That's more than I expected when I made that announcement." They sat in companionable silence for a moment, watching the fountain's changing faces. "I received Harrington's formal offer this morning," Zara finally said, gesturing to her phone. "Associate position, impressive salary, signing bonus, and that special committee role they mentioned." "That's wonderful," Jordan replied warmly. "You must be thrilled." "I declined it." Jordan's eyebrows rose in surprise. "May I ask why?" Zara had been asking herself the same question since sending her response. The opportunity represented everything she'd worked toward: prestige, financial security, influence within established systems. Yet something fundamental had shifted during the past week. During my interview, I assured them I could separate personal experience from professional obligations, she explained. I believed that was strength. But last night, I reviewed Harrington's client list more carefully. 3 major airlines with documented patterns of discrimination incidents. 2 hotel chains currently fighting class action lawsuits over racial bias. A tech company whose algorithm has been proven to disadvantage minority applicants. She turned to face Jordan directly. I realized I'd be helping protect the very systems that allow incidents like what happened to us to continue. I'd be using my Harvard Law degree to help companies manage their liability rather than address root causes. Jordan nodded thoughtfully. That's a significant realization, but also a significant opportunity cost. True. But this morning, I accepted a different offer. Zara couldn't contain a small smile. The Chicago Urban Justice Center is creating a new corporate accountability initiative focused on transportation equity. They've asked me to lead it. That's impressive, Jordan remarked, though I imagine the salary is somewhat different. About 60% less, Zara acknowledged with a laugh. My parents think I've lost my mind, but for the first time since law school, I feel aligned with my deeper purpose rather than just my ambition. Jordan understood completely. Her own decision to speak up had come from a similar place. Recognition that sometimes integrity required deviation from expected paths. What about Patricia Whitfield? Jordan asked. Have you heard anything? Zara nodded. Her company's board voted yesterday. She's been asked to resign. Apparently, the viral video was just the latest in a pattern of similar incidents that had been quietly settled over the years. Justice served finally, Jordan mused, though I doubt she sees it that way. Accountability isn't justice, Zara replied. But it's a prerequisite. Without it, nothing changes. Their conversation was interrupted by Jordan's phone. After a brief exchange, she ended the call with a bemused expression. That was my union representative. Apparently, the airline's executive committee has approved a major revision to passenger conduct policies. Clear consequences for discriminatory behavior, regardless of the passenger's status level, and mandatory training for all customer service staff on intervention protocols. Your PA announcement had quite the impact, Zara observed. Not just my announcement, Jordan corrected her. Your dignity in the face of assault. Dr. Reynolds' medical expertise, Kiana Washington's viral video, the other passengers who provided statements. Change requires a critical mass of resistance, not just individual heroics. As afternoon mellowed toward evening, the 2 women discussed how their lives had transformed since that fateful flight. Beyond professional developments, both had experienced personal shifts in how they navigated spaces where they had often been the only one or the first. Before this happened, I spent so much energy making others comfortable with my presence, Zara confessed. Downplaying racial dynamics, focusing exclusively on merit, never acknowledging the additional burdens I carried. Jordan nodded in recognition. The constant calculation, which battles to fight, which to endure. The exhaustion of it. Exactly. But something changed for me when that coffee hit my face. Zara's voice strengthened. I realized no amount of excellence, accommodation, or strategic silence would protect me from someone who fundamentally questioned my humanity. So why keep contorting myself? Freedom in the midst of fire, Jordan murmured. I've experienced similar revelations throughout my career. Each one moves you closer to your authentic power. As they prepared to part ways, Zara asked the question that had prompted her to reach out in the first place. The media attention is finally dying down, but I've been invited to speak at several events about what happened. I'm still deciding whether to step into that role or focus entirely on my legal work. Any wisdom to share? Jordan considered carefully before responding. Throughout my career, I've learned that representation matters. Not just visible presence, but authentic voice. Whatever you decide, make sure it honors your complete self, not just the parts others find palatable or inspirational. 6 months. Later, the seeds planted during that turbulent flight had blossomed in ways neither woman could have fully anticipated. Zara Johnson stood before the Transportation Equity Subcommittee of Congress, presenting findings from the Chicago Urban Justice center's groundbreaking study on discrimination patterns in commercial aviation. Beside her sat Jordan Pierce, now serving as the flight attendants' union representative to a multi-airline task force on passenger conduct policies. The data clearly shows that incidents of discrimination aren't isolated anomalies, but systemic patterns requiring structural solutions. Zara explained to the assembled representatives. Our research identifies specific policy recommendations that would significantly reduce such incidents while protecting the dignity and safety of both passengers and crew members. Jordan followed with testimony about frontline experiences, illustrating the human impact behind the statistics. Her 15 years of observation, combined with Zara's legal analysis, created a compelling case for regulatory oversight. Watching from the gallery, Dr. Martin Reynolds and Kiana Washington, both now advisory board members for the initiative, exchanged satisfied glances. What had begun as a single incident of coffee deliberately poured had catalyzed a movement, with implications far beyond one flight or one airline. The formal hearing concluded, but the work continued. In conference rooms and community centers, through legal briefs and social media campaigns, a growing network of advocates pressed for accountability within systems that had long prioritized profit over dignity. Change came incrementally. A revised airline policy here, an improved training protocol there, occasionally a significant legal precedent. The work was neither glamorous nor swift, but it was substantive, gradually transforming institutions from within, rather than merely managing their public image. On the anniversary of that fateful flight, Zara and Jordan met again at the same bench in Millennium Park. Both had experienced professional growth and personal evolution throughout the year. Jordan had been promoted to training supervisor, helping reshape how new flight attendants were prepared to handle discrimination incidents. Zara had successfully established the Transportation Equity Initiative as a respected voice in policy discussions. "I read about Patricia Whitfield," Jordan mentioned as they shared lunch. "She's launched a reputation restoration consultancy for executives facing public relations crises." Zara laughed despite herself. "Of course she has. Some people learn lessons, others just learn tactics." "Still," Jordan mused, "I wonder if she realizes how her actions that day actually created positive change she never intended." "Isn't that often how progress works?" Zara reflected. "Someone defends an unjust status quo so vigorously that it finally becomes impossible for everyone else to ignore the underlying issues." As they discussed the year's developments, both acknowledged how their unexpected connection had influenced their respective paths. Two women from different generations and different sectors of society, linked by a moment of injustice that could have diminished them, but instead had revealed their capacity for transformation, both personal and systemic. Their conversation was interrupted by a group of young women approaching hesitantly, clearly recognizing them from media coverage. "Excuse me," one began nervously. "We're aviation management students at DePaul. We've been studying your case as part of our ethics curriculum. Would you mind if we asked you a few questions?" Jordan and Zara exchanged glances, silently acknowledging the ripple effects of their experience continuing to expand in ways they couldn't have imagined. "We'd be happy to," Zara replied, making room on the bench. As the students gathered around, eager to understand how a coffee assault had catalyzed policy changes across an industry, Jordan reflected on how ordinary moments of courage could ultimately transcend their original circumstances. One flight, one incident, one decision to speak up rather than follow protocol. The mathematics of change rarely followed predictable equations, but sometimes, when the right elements combined at the right moment, transformation became not just possible, but inevitable. What do you think about Jordan and Zara's choices? Would you have had the courage to stand up against discrimination like Jordan did, or pursue justice through systemic change like Zara, even at personal cost? Like this video, if you believe everyday heroes making difficult choices can create real change in the world. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of courage and justice. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that speaking up matters, even when it's difficult. And don't forget to comment below. What would you have done if you witnessed this incident on the plane? Thank you for joining us for this journey of justice and transformation. Remember, The most powerful changes often begin with a single person refusing to accept injustice as normal. Until next time, keep standing up for what's right. This story reminds us that meaningful change often begins with a single moment of courage. Jordan and Zara demonstrate that standing against racism requires both immediate action and long-term commitment. When Jordan chose integrity over protocol, she created ripples that extended far beyond that single flight. Meanwhile, Zara's decision to pursue systemic change, rather than personal advancement, shows that true justice requires structural transformation, not just individual success. The story also highlights how privilege operates in everyday spaces. Patricia Whitfield believed her status entitled her to discriminate without consequences, a mindset that perpetuates injustice across society. Yet when exposed to public accountability, even entrenched power can be challenged. Perhaps most importantly, the narrative reveals how collective action amplifies individual courage. Jordan's announcement, Zara's dignity, Dr. Reynolds' expertise, Kiana's video, and other passengers' testimonies created a critical mass that systems couldn't ignore. Real change happens when people from different positions unite around shared values of human dignity and justice. In our own lives, we all face moments where we must choose between comfortable silence and courageous action. This story challenges us to consider: what would we risk to stand up for what's right? What moment in your life required you to choose between staying silent or standing up against injustice? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story moved you to reflect on racism and accountability in our society, please hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful narratives that challenge us to create a more just world. Share this video with someone who needs encouragement to speak up when witnessing discrimination. Together, we can transform individual acts of courage into collective movements for change.